Welcome to another episode of An Inside Job, War on Addiction. I'm not sure what episode, I think it's 40. I want to thank, as always, LATV, all the guys, and I always quote Dr. Gabor Mate, my inspiration for this show, because he knows so much. His book, Realm of the Hungry Ghost, he explains addiction, biological, chemical, neurological, physiological, medical, social, emotional, political, economical, spiritual. And I always say, we're not going to fix an addict or an alcoholic in 7 days in a ward and then boom, back on the street. Not all the time, but there aren't any beds out there, and it's very, very difficult. Okay, so I'm very happy that this show's 3 years old. And like I said, we have 40. They said 42 the other day, but I'm really psyched. I'm really psyched for this whole thing. Doing a documentary on one person through the struggles that they go through, just like us all. But I have, I believe, 5 or 6 shows on this girl, Chanel. And we're going to do one final one. And it's heartbreaking, but it shows there is hope. It also shows how difficult it is for an addict in this world, life on life's terms, especially, in my opinion, especially somebody trying to kick drugs. I say it in here somewhere. There are 200 people dying a day. That's dying. The amount of, what is it called? There's a certain word for it, when the ambulance comes and gives Narcan and stuff like that. There's a name for it, and that goes on and on and on. My wife is a minister, and she's chaplain of the fire department, and we just hear it constantly with DODs. Anyway, so the person that was going to come didn't. It's tough to, I don't know what the problem is. He didn't call me, but it just happened. So somebody suggested I do my drunkalog or just drunkalog. And so I am going to do that. I come from 5 generations of addiction. I have observed 5 years of addiction. My grandfather, my father and his brothers, which played an important role in this thing. Myself, my brothers, my sister. One brother died, 53. It's tragic, just tragic. Very intelligent man, but just, he ruined his body anyway. So my siblings, down to my son, and that has been tragic. It's been 37 years, and what a journey that's been. And I always thought, if I'm sober, I of course can get him sober. 37 years later, one of the lessons of my life, especially in AA, you can't get anybody sober. Nobody's getting sober unless they're forced into it. until they want to get sober. We can do all we want and sponsor whoever we want and take them to 1,000,000 meetings, but if they aren't ready or if they're not working hard at this thing, and I'm talking a lot about the 12-step program. All the people that come in here are from a 12-step program. I am trying to get other people in as people who have lost a sibling to come in and explain just what that was. And maybe I can get into that a little. No, or a lot. So 5 generations. My son, and then his daughter, who OD'd at 27. So it's just, it's just snowballed down the road and keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And now with the drugs, I hope that his son, who grew up in this thing, doesn't fall prey to it. I heard my other grandson from my daughter and my granddaughter. What is it called? With the pipe that doesn't, I just can't think of it. But there's a word for it, and damn it. Anyway, they're doing that a little. I think my other grandson on the other side, he tried a little. It'll come to me, that word. But so, you know, I just hope, but whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So, where am I? My environment growing up was my father and his brothers, and I lived in a bar. They were in there. You know, these were the good times. The good times. I watched the good times, and then I watched the bad times. But the good times, my father always wanted to be with him. He was good in that sense. You know, we didn't have a car. We were poor. We walked the tracks to get wherever we were going, which he did as a kid. And that included the bars. Sitting in there for hours and hours with my uncle. I'd go pick him up walking with my Uncle Kay, died 53, and would make the, not the rounds, but the trail. Hank Spa was the first. Usually it was on Saturday. Hank Spa, get a little something to eat. There was one a little, another one. I just can't remember. Then up the West End Cafe. And I swear that they had swinging doors. But Saturday, jam-packed in there. And I'm sitting at the bar. Everybody's having a good time. You know, they're drunk. They're giving me money. Drink all the orange soda that I wanted, and then head home, and which was up in West Fitchburg. And there they drank Kruger Ale, and I was the bartender. Ronnie, get me another one. In a church key, of course, and enjoyed everything. All the sweets, all the soda, as much as I could carry from Crevades Market up to house, which wasn't too far, again, the tracks, and just as much sugar that I could get in me. That may have been the beginning of this thing with my addictions. And so that's what I grew up with. And I was happy enough. I said that my father, when he went somewhere, he would want me to go down to get his beer, wherever else, maybe the bar. But there was 4 of us, 4 kids. But he worked shifts at a paper mill. And I know from personal experience with 3 to 11, 11 to 7, 7 to 3, your body does not know what day it is, what week it is. So it turned to no more good times with him working, coming home, trying to get his head straight, drinking beer, and sitting and reading. And that's the way he went out. His body was beat to nothing. I went in for the physical. The doctor, I was 21. The doctor looked at me and said, just shook his head. And he was in a coma. And he went a week or something. And that was it. And to this day, I miss him. I loved my father. And I still miss him. I wish he could have got sober. I wish he would have started smoking weed. Maybe it would have helped. But it was everything that came along with his drinking and working the shift, or not going in, or going in drunk, way up on they were called calendars, way up the top. And the supervisor would call my mother and say, Mary, you got to straighten him out. And one day he went off the calendars and broke 2 arms, and the money got really tight. And it was that stuff. It was that stuff that really went down deep in my soul, because I believe, and Dr. Mattei believes, it's all environment. Not everybody, 98% of the 37 years that I've been sober and going to meetings, they had a rough childhood, and some a hell of a lot worse than mine. And he said, and I believe, that stuff goes really, really deep. And I also believe that we're running, and we also try to fill that hole that was dug. And that's how it was for me. 16 and a half, didn't even want to drink before that. I was scared because I watched my father when he'd go over the line and just out of control. But down at Hampton Beach, 16 and a half, I'll get into that. But the first beer, and 2 beers, and my whole world changed, because I wasn't that shy kid anymore. I could talk to women. It just changed. I was Paul McCartney and Fred Astaire. That was the early days. But then it all changed. It all changed for me. So that was it. The whole. I hated school. I went to Catholic school with the nuns back in the 50s. I didn't like one moment of it. And it wasn't because they would beat us up. Maybe we deserved it. But I didn't want to be in there. Then I got behind, and they just kept passing me through. And then when I went to high school, I was so ill-prepared for it that at 15 and a half, my father let me quit, and went to work down in Clegon at a shoe factory, gluing soles, and again, a year into that or whatever. But hanging in the pool room, I worked with a guy, Snooky Richards, and he was one of the top men in town, but he was also an amazing pool player. And he got me in the pool room, and he tried to teach me, but I just wasn't good. Some people are, some people. Makes no difference. But at 16 and a half, I had a vehicle. And so I'd cart all those guys around, older than me, 4 or 5 years older. But I had the car, so I'd go around with them, you know, and they'd get me into the bars because there was a bunch of them, and maybe sometimes 2 cars. And they said, you don't let them in, we're going somewhere else. So, you know, I was in heaven. I was in heaven. Plenty of women, plenty of booze. Well, after I had those 2 beers down at Hampton Beach, I never looked back. I just never looked back. I always got the beer for everybody, and that was it. That was my God, all right, because it just got me. I was filling that hole, or maybe masking that hole. So let's see. I quit school at 15 and a half, like I just said that, and went to work. Good times. Okay, it was good times. From 16 and a half to 19 and a half. One of the best times in my life. Like I said, it was just partying and the beach and the waterfront and the Beatles and just everything. It was, but then I got drafted, and I was 2 months, month and a half into basic training, and my girlfriend, and there were others, told me she was pregnant. She told me later in life she wanted to get pregnant. I was not fit to be a father. I wasn't ready for it. I loved my children. I loved them. But, I didn't drink in Vietnam. We smoked a lot of weed. And I didn't drink. But when I came home, I began to drink. And I didn't know it, but I had PTSD. I was in infantry, and we were right in the mix. So I didn't know about the PTSD. Nobody said anything about it. Now they know. And so I came home, started drinking, and with the PTSD and the responsibility, it was like a volcano coming up and flowing down. And I took everybody down with me. My mother, my father was alive. When I came home, I was 21, and he was still alive, but he didn't see the problems. I'm mixed up. Nothing new being mixed up. So everything erupted. I went down, and I went down hard. By 26 and a half, it was my first suicide attempt. And there were others, but I lost everything. I wasn't fit to go see my kids. I didn't have enough money. So that was it. The last 7 years of my drinking was a complete and utter disgrace. I ended up working. I burnt every bridge, but my cousin owed me because I took him in the house. He took me in his house, which, of course, went down. And I didn't drink then also. And so I worked on what he did for work on the pig farm, up to my ankles in the waist. And I was so done with caring about anything. I didn't care about that. And so that was almost the last year of my drinking. And I lost all hope. I lost everything. I didn't care that I was working on the pig farm. We smoked weed, we drank, and we could do whatever we wanted as long as we shoveled stuff in. It was called the, quote, the shit truck, shoveling it in. And it made me a man. No, just kidding. Time went on, and I was with a woman in Clinton, who she had a son. Last thing in the world I wanted was another child, and she was on the pill. And she said, I must have forgot, and so I took another life into the world. But everything went down the tubes. Everything went down the tubes, but then I got sober. I got sober right around the time that my son Paul was born. And that's when I got sober. I don't know where I am here. I want to try to do 2 shows. So there I was. And it was going to be another suicide attempt. Bradley's walking in, so. Where we at, Bradley? 7 minutes. Okay, pal. So there I was. There was going to be, she asked me, she said, why don't you leave? I was worthless, and I knew it. And she said, why don't you just leave? And so I had insurance because I was half working in a plastic place, but I had insurance. I was going out the window that day. There was no doubt. It was 2.5 stories down. And then I remembered my good friend Danny, and we drank together, we drugged together, and we were friends for a lot of years. And I heard that Danny was sober. So I gave him a call, and I didn't know one thing about AA. My mother talked a little about it, but it wasn't going anywhere, so she gave up on that. But Danny got sober with AA. And so he got me in up to Narcag Hospital, and that was 1982. And it was a small hospital. And I want to see where I'm at. Okay, I'm doing good. So I went up to the hospital. I immediately fell in love with AA. I went up there, of course, drunk, and you had free range, even though they were detoxing me, able to, head out and talk to the other people. I thought I was an outcast from society, which more or less I was. And I talked to these people getting sober out there. And they said, no, you're not derelict of sobriety. You just can't drink. I had tried to not drink many, many times with my, with my wife, but it never clicked. I would stop. One time I stopped for 9 months, and everything was going good. And one day, working in the summer, I said, I'm going to go down to Lithuanian Club and have a kielbasa and a beer. Or another time, that's how it went. Because we can't just have one. An addict, alcoholic, we can't have one. And that's how it went over and over and over again. And they told me, you just can't drink, and you just can't pick up the first drink. You can't. And then it made sense to me. All those times I tried to stop and feeling good. In the Army, I got my jaw broken from drinking and messing with the wrong guy. And he hit me, and I went across the room, and for a week, my jaw was broken, and they told me, nah, no problem. Went on sick call, and so I had that week. But anyway, I was up there for 2.5 months, no drinking. I was feeling great. I was writing. It was just wonderful. But then when I went back to where, you know, it was in Colorado, went back there and then started drinking. I'm surprised that even though they kept giving me rank, I'm just surprised that I just kept making it. I mean, I didn't pull a lot of stuff, but I did. And, you know, a lot of people get discharged from I was snickering because, you know, Vietnam was in full force, and maybe they didn't want to discharge anybody. I know we're about to stop, and I'm going to try another half hour. So I know the red the red light's gonna come on. So we may as well wrap this one up, Bradley.